been not only just a good friend, you've been a strong writer. Brandon Fist. Okay, good morning. It is January 23rd. Want to welcome you to the committee meeting this morning. I am joined by Mr. Tom Labange, so we do have a quorum. Madam Clerk, what's before us today? I think we have primarily items, at least six items on our calendar that we can move quickly, but why don't we just go through the items 1 through 6 at this point? And do I have any cards or anything like that?
No speaker cards have been submitted at this time.
Okay, let's roll.
All right, items 1 through 5 are resolutions and CLA reports relative to establishing the city's position on various legislative matters. 1 is to support AB 8, which authorizes law enforcement agencies to issue a yellow alert. 2 is to support a reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. 3 is to honor the contributions of Angelenos who worked to pass the 1994 California Desert Protection Act. And 4 is to support increased funding for the Obama administration's Countering Violent Extremism Strategic Implementation Plan. And 5 is to repeal the FDA's current blood donor policies.
Okay, so on 5, I want to continue that item, and I just haven't figured out how long of a continuance I'd like to have on that. On the other 4 items, on item 1, let's adopt the CLA report and the resolution.
Just a friendly
Yes,
request on
Mr.
that. I'd like the CLA to have an additional information sheet on what all the other alerts are, the Amber alerts, et cetera, so we see how many alerts. that
Good
we
idea.
have, so we all could be taught again and refreshed on what is what.
Good idea. And I would take that as a friendly amendment. On item 2, let's adopt the CLA report and resolution. We'll do the same on item 3, the CLA report and resolution. And on item 4, we'll adopt the CLA report and the revised resolution. Let's, so without objection, that'll be the order, or these items will be deemed approved. So that takes us to 6.
Correct. And item number 6 is a city attorney report and an ordinance amending the LA Municipal Code to make various changes to the city's office holder and legal defense committee laws.
Okay, why don't we bring up, just to give me a quick brief on this, plus it will afford us the opportunity, at least me, to see them the first time in the new year. Good morning, each and every one of you.
Good morning, council members, and Happy New Year to you.
Would you like to start? Just kind of brief, or?
I would
the
be
city
happy
attorney?
to.
Go right ahead if you would.
This is an ordinance that is before you. It has been in committee before, and it reflects recommendations made by the Ethics Commission after a series of months during which they studied office holder and legal defense committees, and they made some recommendations for updating the laws, including adjusting for the consumer price index, the contribution limits, both the individual per person limits and the annual overall expenditures. There is with the adjusted amounts, the annual limits for city council members and their office holder accounts would be $93,000 per year in both contributions and expenditures. And for citywide office holders, the limit would be $150,000 in both contributions and expenditures. Other language has been updated to streamline the provisions. There were some there are specified types of expenditures that can be made out of an office holder account, and some of those overlapped in a confusing way, and so it has been updated, and the language improves clarity in terms of what those expenditures are. And it also, the other major thing is that it moves into the municipal code some of the reporting requirements for the quarterly reports, the statements that are required for all campaign and office holder committees.
Thank you. Harit, you have anything to add, or is?
Nothing to add. We just presented the ordinance codifying the same recommendations, along with incorporating the Rules Committee's recommendations from the December meeting.
Okay, so if it is okay with Mr. Labange,
I just wanted one thing.
Go
I
right
know,
ahead.
At the city clerk's desk, which is probably the busiest public counter for information, other than the permit counters of our public works and building and safety, is there an ethics computer there? Or do people
No.
have to go up to the 23rd floor?
We have, actually on the 24th floor, which is where our offices are, we have a public terminal in our lobby that people can and do use on a regular basis.
I'm just put a thought, don't have to add to anything here. Should there be one in the clerk's office, which is the most public? I know there's the Ask the Mayor's desk, there's the Angelinas out there. This is the main street. This is the 4-level interchange, the rotunda. Would that be a benefit to all who may inquire? Or do you find enough people find their way to your floor?
We actually have quite a bit of foot traffic. You might be surprised,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. But we can certainly have that conversation with the city clerk's
Have a conversation with
office.
the clerk's office and see if it works.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. City Attorney?
Perhaps when you invite people up to the Tom Bradley Tower, you could tell them to stop at the ethics.
That would be good. We're the way station.
okay, with that said, let's adopt the city attorney report and the draft ordinance. I want to thank the three of you. Madam Clerk, why don't we move now to item 7?
Thank you.
Item 7?
Thank you.
Item 7 is the last item on the agenda, and those are CLA reports and resolutions relative to recommendations for the city's 2015-16 legislative programs as submitted by the Departments of Transportation, Economic and Workforce Development, Recreation and Parks, and Housing and Community Investment Department.
Okay, why don't you give us an overview?
Okay, yes.
Good to see you.
Good morning, council members. John Wickham with the CLA's office. As you know, we are starting a new biennial legislative session in both Sacramento and Washington. And this is an opportunity for the city to jump in and share with our legislators in both of those bodies the ideas that we have that would help the city be more productive and offer better service, et cetera. And so Mr. Wesson had sent a letter to all of the departments and requested that they submit ideas for sponsorship of legislation. The CLA received several reports, and from the departments, our analysts have looked at those recommendations, and we have reports for your consideration. And this morning we have reports concerning legislative proposals from the Department of Recreation and Parks, the Housing Department, the Economic Development Department, and the Department of Transportation. And so staff are here to answer any questions that you might have on any of the proposals that have come forward. And we can dive into those individually if you like, or if you want to just focus on one or two, however you'd like to proceed.
How many total are there?
Let me see.
And when would be the cutoff?
Yes, there are no cutoffs for the federal government. They introduce bills as it goes along.
I should have been more specific for
No.
Sacramento.
Yeah, Sacramento in particular is our concern because there's a deadline of next Friday, a week from today, for legislators to ask the Leg Council to draft the legislation. And then the deadline is February 27th to introduce the legislation. And so we basically have until next week on state legislative issues to find a legislator to request Leg Council to prepare something for us.
Well, what I would recommend, Mr. Labange, is that we move forward quickly on this, and as these measures are working their way through the state, if we need to make amendments or changes, we'll be afforded the opportunity to do that. But it's important that we at least get get them introduced or get them, in written form. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question on one.
Go right ahead.
The initial review of parking citations, what does that mean, Mr. Wickham?
Yes, I don't know if the Department of Transportation is here. They might be able to provide some greater technical detail on that. Which one is this again?
Number
we could
one,
get
yeah, the initial
DOT.
review of parking citations for the city has contracted for the initial review of parking citations prior to private vendor for decades. A judge has ruled against this practice in a recent lawsuit involving the city, which would prohibit a delegation of initial reviews to be by a private vendor. What does that mean?
Yeah, as it's described, there was a judicial ruling against the city on this matter, and it has some significant cost implications for us in terms of the way we're able to process the items. I think the department might have more detail on this.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Kenneth Heinz, Department of Transportation. Initial reviews, is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. It's basically first look at a citation, if it meets a prima facie case, if it was validly issued, based off of.
What
the
is the
first
judge
information.
saying, that it has to be a city employee as opposed to a contract employee, or what's the judge saying?
The vehicle code is ambiguous as to that issue. The judge felt that in the Cody Weiss case that that it should
If
be
you're not
city-
sure, we could wait a little bit on this. All I want to know is, does this mean that we have to hire people to look at tickets before they're processed, or what does it ultimately mean?
If we can't use the services of an outside contractor, that would be the obligation of the city to
Well,
hire
what
additional
what
staff.
about West Hollywood, which is all private contractor?
Yeah, we would have to take a look at the other
All right,
jurisdictions
look
and
at
see
the
how it
other
applies.
jurisdictions, I just don't want to see
Yeah.
it, and I think we should be very cautious. I think the mayor, I don't know, is the mayor's representative here at all? Is the mayor's office looking at the parking ticket issue? He has a committee working on that? Okay, I got a nod for those from the deputy. I don't want to have you testify, but we should look at that because it's extremely important that we're fair, but also at the same time that we're firm and we can do it done without a lot of cost, both to the public and to us.
Yes, and as the department has stated, because of the ambiguity in the law, the judge has determined that they're looking for clarity, and so this bill that we're seeking is to find clarity in the law. So I think that goes to your point, Councilman, that by seeking this legislation, we'll be able to make sure we know exactly what we're allowed to do. And
Right.
we can try and do this in a way that's cost efficient.
Right. And like Mr. Gatto's thing, inoperable parking meters, for them, in order to discourage vandalism, the resolution would repeal AB 61, Mr. Gatto's, to prohibit local authority from restricting the parking of a vehicle in that space that contains an inoperable meter. When it doesn't work, they chalk the tires. That's the process. So, and then also, it's been cases where sometimes there's an active group that vandalizes meters and parks there thinking they're going to get away scot-free.
Yeah.
So I think there's something that needs clarification. And I see the fine young man from the Department of Transportation.
Good morning, council member. How are
Did
you
you
doing?
get stuck in traffic crossing the street?
No. I was actually here in the back, just enjoying the view.
Okay. Anything to add?
Yeah, with the ghetto law, we have noticed that vandalism has increased significantly. Going back to 2012, we had about roughly 100 meters that were vandalized citywide. You take it to 2013, it had gone up a little bit, up to a couple hundred, but after the ghetto law, we've now seen up to 1,000 meters that have been vandalized, and all kinds of creative ways of vandalizing the meters, which I'm not going to go ahead and put out for public consumption, but we have seen a significant increase because now there is the motive to go ahead and vandalize the meter so that they could get free parking. So what we're looking to do with this is either repeal or at the very least make sure that this law is not extended beyond 2017.
And let me ask a question. Right now on Larchmont, a meter goes bad. And that means someone parks there, you can't give them a ticket.
We cannot give them a ticket if the coin and the credit card is not operating.
Got it. Now, if you chalk, what we should do is appeal it that we chalk all 4 tires. And that's the only way we do it. We used to chalk 1 tire on the inside of the back left. And if we chalk all 4, because this will continue to happen real quickly because it's expensive to park. But anyway.
And we do continue to cite them if they exceed the time limit. So even if it's broken, there's potential for a time limit violation.
You could still chalk them
Yes,
and cite them?
yes.
Okay, but they just do it for the hour that they're there. It's not all day
The,
work.
2 hours, 4
Right,
hours,
got it.
whatever the limit is.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Labange, you have any other questions?
No, I just want to thank the legislative staff, and I think if you could just ask that, Mr. President, that remind all members that we're in the tight, if they have any ideas, to get them up now, because
No, I
we're running
agree.
into that deadline. The one thing I do want, if I could ask for here, is I do believe City of Los Angeles should request the state to develop a bond issue for all Californians to deal with retrofit and earthquake. It's not just going to stop in Los Angeles. It will go to Culver City. It may go to Glendale, or whatever the
Yeah.
fissure is. So could you do that, John, before this deadline for me to put in?
Yes, we
Yeah.
will draft a resolution for you, and
Call it for a statewide bond issue, and let the state legislature determine the size of the bond for all counties, all 58 counties in the state.
for earthquake,
Earthquake retrofit. And check with Dr. Jones, so we have the right words.
okay, so we will draft a resolution.
Right, yeah.
And if you would like us to bring that forward when this goes to full council, it would be on the file as an amendment to this.
Or you could just give it to me, you get it done by 10 o'clock today, we'll do it today. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, terrific. And if you don't mind, we are sharing this information with the mayor's office so that they can be ready to find
Absolutely.
legislators and go forward.
Absolutely.
Fine, we work as a team.
That's right.
So anyway, thank you, Madam Clerk. Without objection on this item, we'll adopt the CLA reports and resolutions.
And before we end, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Mr. Wickham. He remembered the first time he ever met me, he was a young man working for the recreational parks at Travel Town at a program in Griffith Park. And now he's elevated to be our top man in the Legislative Analyst's Office, surpassing Avak. Are you listening, Avak? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Labange. Madam Clerk, is there any additional business before this committee?
That completes all the business this morning.
Then we are adjourned. Thank each and every one of you.